Welcome to the Shelter in Place drawing stream. So glad you could join today. If you're watching the replay, then welcome. Appreciate you being here. All right, we are continuing this nose study. And I was, I think, using violet last time that we stopped. And just trying to push that in a lot of different places. I think I'm going to pick it back up again just a little bit and move it into a few places here, and then we may have to use that red again a little bit. But we're just going to dive right in here and see how much we can get done with the limited amount of time that we have. Appreciate you guys being here, and I hope this has been helpful. I did get some feedback from some that told me that they enjoy watching a real-time live stream of working on features, so that's good to hear. All right. I do want to make it a lot darker down here and probably anywhere else, but it's a little bit too violet over here. Hey, Carol, how are you? Thanks for joining over here on Facebook Live. Appreciate it. And we'll push this up here just a little bit more. We want to get it to a point. Hey, Harry. It's wet over there, huh? Well, thanks for joining, Harry. Appreciate it. I want to get more of my darker tone over here. There we go. And then I noticed up here I can do a little bit more right up here and then push this down. Probably need to sharpen this pencil though. Let's see. Maybe we can get a little bit more done though before we have to sharpen it. There we go. I'm going to come back in this direction. It's a collage of a lot of abstract shapes that are making up the whole of all of these small little areas within the overall feature of the nose. Now with this paper, now I need to sharpen this because if I don't keep an incredibly sharp pencil, then I can start, I'm not sure you can see this, let me zoom in, I can start having some of the irregularities of the tooth of the paper show up, and that's what's happening right in here. This little line right there. Some of that's okay, though. We're not drawing something that needs to look airbrushed. We're drawing something that does have some character to it. And So we're not going to worry about some of those things. Okay. I want to look up here. When I start adding some of the other colors on top, then we're going to zoom back out just a little bit more. We're going to have some of these darker shadows look a little more uniform. They won't stand out like a sore thumb like they are right now. Like I feel like they are right now anyway. Okay. Now, see if we'll come back in this direction a little bit and just blend some of that together a little bit more. Yeah, sort of a hybrid type of grisaille method, Carol. It's not really a strict grisaille method, because if it were, then I probably would just be using, like the violet color initially and render all of the values first, and then I would go over on top with color. But I do that sometimes. So this is more of a kind of a hybrid system, if you will. I do like using a grisaille method. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of the process, and it simplifies a lot of things. You don't have to think as hard when you're using that grisaille method. I'm noticing a few little wrinkles up here that would be kind of nice to capture. But I don't want them to look too dark or too prominent. So just faintly put those in, and then some of my other colors on top will help to influence that. Okay, grab this area right here. It's looking a little bit too light. Can make that a little bit darker. There we go. Now over here, if I increase the value over here in the other part of the nose, then I also want to increase it down here and make sure that it's pretty bright, or pretty dark rather, over here. Zoom back out just a little bit. There we go. Okay. Yeah, some of this, if I'm looking for some of the recessed areas there and some of the darkest areas, I can make them nearly look like a value study and make them look like a pattern. And then whenever I start blending with some of my lighter, warmer colors on top, this cool color will start to become less prominent, and it will blend together a lot better than what we're seeing right now. So I'm not going to worry a whole lot about this looking too dark. It's a very faint drawing as it is right now anyway. Sure, yeah, Carol, this is Violet from the Derwent Lightfast line. Hope you can see that there. So we're using a limited palette. I'm only using the 24 set of the Derwent Lightfast pencils. And because of that, I don't have a whole lot of choices then when it comes to, we're purposely limiting ourselves, and I don't have a whole lot of choices then. Hey, Peggy, how are you? Good to see you out here over on Facebook Live. I hope Anna is doing well. I miss her. There's a lot of people I'm missing right now. I tell you what, it's really something. All the social distancing has made us, a lot of us, where we just miss people that we are used to seeing and people we've seen in the past, and it's hopefully the end is in sight, though. It's a bad thing, I think. Oh, that's good. Good to hear. Anne is, she's a lady that just has many, many hobbies and keeps going all the time. And she takes art classes. She she's learning banjo, takes banjo lessons. She is constantly learning and growing and developing in her 80s. Which kind of reminds me of my mom in that regard. My mom is someone like that who always loves to learn, and just always learning new things and doing new things. Okay. Push this up here. And this comes down just a little bit. It's funny when you work on a feature that is this large, then you're actually looking at a lot of abstract shapes when you start doing something very large, instead of just looking at the typical shapes and angles that make up the anatomical feature of this facial feature. And with painting, depending on, I guess, what size canvas and all of that you're working on. What you could do with painting, though, is you could use a larger brush, right? But with drawing, you don't have that option. You don't have a larger pencil. So you're still using that little tiny point of the pencil to depict all of these things that you're working on. So it's something that you have to start looking at all of the little tiny abstract areas whenever you're going very large with something. Okay. Now, if you're new to these live streams, we're doing these during our shelter in place, and we're doing them on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evening at 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And so the next one will be tomorrow at 5. And then after that, it'll be Monday until we don't have our stay-at-home order anymore. Or I can hold out as long as possible. We'll do them until those factors are met. So I'll have to keep you posted on that. But if you're interested in learning more about portraiture, you can go over to sharpenedartist.com/cpblog, and I've got information over there about how to draw portraits, and it's a portrait prep series, a series of articles that I've written, and you're welcome to go through that material. There's also a portrait prep course that's totally free that is over there as well that you can sign up on, and I think I put a link down here in the description of the video as well. Regardless of where you are, if you're on Facebook or YouTube, you're able to grab that if you can see it down there. I think I remembered to put that in there. So take advantage of it if you're interested in learning more about portraits. Okay. Now, let's see what we got here. I want to take a look at this and just kind of judge it a little bit. Maybe push this down just a little right here. Firm up that angle just a little bit more right in there. I'm pressing a little bit harder. Sharpen this pencil. Yeah, we're getting to that point where, yeah, right there. I can go ahead and add some different colors on top. And I think I'll do that. So, been using those 4 primarily. I think what I will do then is I will switch over to these 2, Salmon and Heather. So Heather is a lavender color. I'm going to sharpen it though. And of course, salmon is a pink with, some yellow in it. I'll go ahead and sharpen it. There we go. Okay. And we are really close to that highlight right there. And actually, I want that highlight to come back this direction just a little bit. So So I can use this sticky putty and move some of those darker pencil strokes out of there. And now I can come back in here with my salmon color. Depends on which pencil line you're using, on what they're going to call this particular color, because this sometimes might be called light flesh. It might be called, it's really close to some of the lighter pinks that have a little bit of yellow in them. Okay, we're about at that point where we're burnishing. So let me see what this is going to look like right in here. Whoops, broke off my little tip. I'm pressing a little hard right in here. Now this is where I might start using some of the little circles, because I'm getting to a point where I'm burnishing. So I'm pressing pretty hard. I about run out of room, believe it or not. But we're on smooth paper, so very smooth paper. Yeah, so when we start pushing harder, we're going to blend all of this together that we've been working on. Now I think if I use some little circles right in here, I can get my final texture on that surface. And then if we think that's too dark right there, we can lighten that up by using a lighter pencil on top of it, because it does look a little dark to me. All right, here we go. And if you want to follow along and draw this yourself, you're welcome to do that. You can go over to sharpenedartist.com/livestreams. That's where the reference is for this. Here we go. Yeah, now if we maintained a very even coverage of pigment with the pencil layers that we put down earlier, then when we are burnishing or using heavier pressure and using some of these circular strokes, then we're going to have a nice even finish on what we're doing. It just starts to show. Everything starts to come to the surface on what we've done already underneath. Okay. Yeah, now I'm going to use this heather here in just a moment. And I think that will fill in some of the gaps on some of this. Trying to overlap some of these small circles that we're making. I think I went probably a little bit too dark right in there with those violet lines right there. I don't think that's going to help us. There we go. So maybe you can avoid that if you're working on yours. Look for wrinkles. Look for little areas where there are, some creases in some of the skin and different passages here and there. But don't go too dark with them if you can help it. Okay. Let's see. So what we're doing with this is we're pushing harder and we're blending a lot of those layers, those small layers within the pencil pigment that we've built up over time. We're pushing them down, we're pushing them together. That's what we're doing. And I don't do this particular technique very often. This isn't something that I do a lot. In fact, most of the time I don't do this. But for this paper, it works, and there's some nice textural effects that we can show with this skin even. And if you notice, we've got some nice skin texture over here, and as we move towards the bridge of the nose and right there from the side plane, then we have a lighter rendering of still that same kind of texture. So that's kind of nice. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in here with that heather color and smooth some of this out on top of what we're doing. Okay, right in here, I'm going to go ahead and tap some of that back. Just give it a real good hard tap to lift some of that. There we go. Went a little dark right in there, I'm noticing. A little bit too dark. That's okay though. All right. Now, so right in here, I can indicate some of those small, little tiny wrinkles right in here. And I don't really want to make a bigger deal than what they are. So I can push that just a little bit this way. There we go. All right. Okay, I think it is time to add some of this heather on top. Down here underneath, I'm not going to draw the beard that we can see there, but I just do want to indicate where some of that darker value is right in there. Okay. Now, let me see if we can lift just a little bit of this area that we went a little too dark in. keep moving that putty around so I've got a clean surface. And just keep trying to lift that. Yeah, that's not too bad. Now I can kind of redraw that just a little bit. I can use this ruby earth. And, I mean, it is a little dark in that area, but not quite as dark as what we had it, probably. Just push that in there just a little bit. Okay. Now I can come back in there with this salmon. Heavier pressure. And push that around just a little bit. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to add the lavender color, this heather, on top. Oh, it's slightly softer, in my opinion, than what I had with that salmon color. Not a lot softer, just slightly. Now I might be able to even go on top of this. I need to sharpen this again. With a red again. And push it over here. There we go. And back up here on the nostril. There is a little spot right in there that's a little bit lighter value. So we'll take a look at some pencil options here in a moment. And there's a little bit of yellow right in there that I want to get with a different pencil color as well. So I'm going to reserve that just a little bit right in there. This is very dark right here. So I can push that in there. Okay. And this wraps around. So I'll do that. And then I'll try to follow some of those abstract shapes over there. This one comes out like that. Back over here, there's this area. It can kind of get tough when you're using a limited palette and you're not seeing everything all at once because you're building it up slowly. And so there is a risk, small risk involved in doing that because, you know, like we said early on, you can start making things look orange, a little too orange than what you want. And that's something that I try to avoid if I can, is having a skin look orange. You know, I don't want it to look too orange. Okay. So I'm going to use a lighter color over here on some of this. And red again. is what I'm going to do. And when we do that, we can push this back in a lighter direction and make the skin a little more pink than what it is currently. So a little more white and red, really, is what I'm thinking in that direction. But I am excited about starting the next project, which is going to be a mouth with teeth. And that'll be fun to do. I can't wait for that. Okay. Yeah, it's really hard to keep that keep that point on the pencil, so I can take my sandpaper here and just firm up that point just a little bit. We're almost out of tooth, though, on this paper. And I know some people work on this paper all the time. I really can't imagine. There's just not a lot of tooth on it, so you have to make decisions quickly and know what they're going to be pretty early on, because you run out of tooth very, very quickly. We've not been working on this project for very long, and we're just about done with the tooth on it. So there's a couple tricks that we can do to get some of this to adhere to the paper, and so we may have to pull out the stops and do some of that. Now this is something over here that we can do on a feature of the face. Even if we don't see it, we can create a darker edge over here. Only because if we taper it, then it's, I think, going to look convincing if we do that. It'll look more three-dimensional. It can, anyway. That's the goal. Okay, what about right in here? This way and then that way, maybe. Just a little bit more. Okay. Yeah, we're going to have to go lighter and white and some red up there to mirror some of that bright pink area. But we went really dark in a lot of areas, and so then now what we'll need to do is come back in the other direction again. But I'm not sure this paper is going to hold out because we're filling up that tooth so quickly. Okay. If this wasn't a study and this was a serious commission portrait, then what we would have done is we would have tested this like crazy on a separate sheet of paper, just like this paper that we're working on. And that way we don't have any surprises. You know, we would know from the beginning what the limitations are, and we wouldn't do this testing on the project. We wouldn't have all these guessing games going on. But that's just the way it goes. When you're doing a study, it's just fun to push something in a certain direction and find out what happens. Okay. Find out what you can do. Now, let's see here. I can still use those circular strokes if I need to. It wouldn't be bad in some of these areas. we add that white on top, I think we might be surprised at some of the effects that we will get. We've got some other options as well with some of the colors over there, not just white. So we might want to explore some other colors also. Okay. Let's see what we got here. All right. Oh, thanks, Carol. Or Donna, rather. Appreciate it. So we've got a white, obviously, that we could use. We've got a wheat that we could use. Champagne. I think I like champagne quite a bit better than the wheat. And then our red. This might be the winning combination right there. So let's take a look at this champagne color. It is quite a bit of yellow. If I add that on top, see what that does. And whoops, pressed too hard. And then white on top of that. White and champagne might be a good way to go. I think it will be. All right. So I'm not going to finish all of this right now, but I just want you to see what this looks like. So if I come in here and I start adding some of these circular strokes right in here, and let's look at this little passage right down here. We can do that. We can add some of this white on top over here, and I'm pressing pretty hard, and right under here. Right there. Here we go. Okay, now that piece right there I kind of like. Now let's say though that we want that to be a little more yellow. So I can add that champagne color on top right there. And I might be able to go back and forth a little bit if I needed to. Okay, hope that's showing up. All right, and then over here, just a little bit, not a lot of that champagne right there, but I can add this white right here. Now you still see that those textural strokes that I made earlier underneath that white. And let's see here, we could add this red on top. And I might be able to add that heather on top, or maybe even the salmon might be good. And then maybe the white one last time right there. And then a little bit of white right there. Some white right here. And then some over here. But I think you can see how we're redeeming a lot of this. If you can see that. So it's going to be fine. It'll have, that burnished look, which is fine. Okay. But some of that texture that we developed already is showing through, which I kind of like that. Okay. This is not a paper that I work on all that often. I know some work on it all the time, so they're used to this type of layering process, and they're very comfortable with it. It can work. It's just if you're not used to it, then like I'm not, it's not something I do very often, then the best thing to do is to test first before you start on your project. But I think you can see how it's going to work out just fine. And when we need something a little more pink, then we're going to add this red like this. And then maybe another layer, and we can do this incrementally even as we progress through certain little, passages here, I guess we'll call them, as we work our way around. I can add that, and then I can add the white again, and it will influence the way that's going to look. Still getting that nice texture on the surface there. All right, yeah, it's going to be just fine. A little more orange than what I wanted right there, and we could add a little more red, I suppose, and some of that salmon again to push that back in a more pink and red direction, just to really mirror what we're seeing in the reference photo there with regard to coloring. There we go. Even over here. Yeah, we will probably be able to just finish this up then tomorrow. Oh, very cool, Donna. Awesome. I'm glad I could inspire you to draw. That's cool. Then my job is done. And I wish you all a good night. I'm just kidding. No, I am going to go. But that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. And again, if you want to join us, we'll be doing this again tomorrow. We'll probably be finishing up this nose tomorrow, and that's the plan. So 5 p.m., we started about 15 minutes ago. So 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time is the time that we'll be working on this. And love to have you join us. And if you want to follow along and draw your own nose, you can download this reference over at sharpenedartist.com/livestreams. And there's the download available for you over there. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Guys, thanks so much for joining. Thanks for watching the replay as well. Reach out at any time if you want to do that in the comments there. Be glad to hear from you. So until next time, stay sharp. Bye-bye.